Hi, I'm David Kelley, President and CEO of Chakana Copper. Chakana is a junior explorer focused on exploring the Soledad project in Ancash, Peru. It's a discovery that was made in 2017. It's advanced considerably over the last several years with 65,000 meters worth of drilling. We published a high-grade copper, gold, silver resource. It's small, but it's high-grade. It starts at surface. It's open at depth. And it has great potential to continue to grow. We have multiple targets on the project: tourmaline breccia pipes, high sulfidation epithermal mineralization that we just drilled for the first time, and a discrete porphyry target area that we think is driving the whole district that we're operating in. So I'm happy to be here, Merlin, to talk to you about that today.
David, thank you very much for the introduction. Now, I've just watched the interview that you did with Matt a few days ago, and you went through the kind of the latest news release in some degree of detail, and you actually spoke to a kind of a series of diagrams, but they didn't actually come up on the screen, which was a little bit frustrating. But I pulled up the news release and I actually listened with the news release there. What I'd like to do today, if possible, is just to kind of break things down into very kind of simple terms. Now that you've done 4 or 5 months of drilling, what did the 2024 drill program achieve? How this informs what you're going to be doing in exploration going forward, how you're approaching the challenge, and in terms of how it's changed what you're looking at in terms of targets. So I think that would be a really useful exercise to get through today. But perhaps could you just start with a very brief summary of, first of all, what the 2024 drill program was?
Yeah, it was a 3,000 meter drill program that had three objectives. First was to test an undrilled outcropping tourmaline breccia pipe, and all of this drilling was in a new area, a new permit. Okay, so it was the first time we were able to get onto the south side and actually do our own drilling. And we had 3 targets. We had a tourmaline breccia pipe target. We had a high sulfidation epithermal zone that's south of the project. We think related to the zoning of the whole system. And then for the first time, we got into what we call the mega gold porphyry target area. So 3 distinctly different targets. In terms of results, 2 new discoveries. The Estremadoyro breccia pipe has very nice high-grade copper, gold, silver mineralization right near surface. The breccia pipe crops out. It's open at depth. Needs a lot more drilling. We just released a plus kilogram silver drill intercept at La Hoya. La Hoya is a high sulfidation epithermal zone. It's got about a 700 meter strike length to the alteration footprint. Really nice system. Needs a lot more drilling. And then at Mega Gold, we drilled 8 scout holes, really just trying to, it's a big area. It's about a 2.5 square kilometer area that's strongly anomalous in gold and molybdenum. Extensive alteration. We got in there 8 scout drill holes, and we put out those results as well. And the upshot of that is we were able to vector, and we're using a lot of different things to vector, but we're basically, taking a snapshot of the whole area, figuring out where the hottest, most prospective area is. It's called defining or reducing your search space, and that's what we've done. And we've got 2 very distinct porphyry targets that have come out of that work as well.
Thank you. So just to recap, you're in the southern half of the kind of the bigger project area.
Yeah.
And it's taken a while for you to get the permits to explore in the southern half. And so this program was your first. Was this your first drilling in the southern part of the area?
That's correct. Yeah.
And when I look at the map, I can see kind of the mega gold area, and Extremadura is just off to the north, and La Hoya, Extremadura is the breccia target.
Yeah.
And you've got the epithermal gold silver off to the southeast, and there's another on your maps. There's another kind of breccia complex to the southwest called the Compañero breccia complex, but you didn't have a chance to drill that.
No, we didn't, Merlin, because that's in the last stage of permitting. The final segment of the permitting is in the southwest It's community-owned land. We're in the process of initiation of activities, which you might know is the very final stage of permitting. And once that's permitted, the entire prospective area of the Soledad project will be fully permitted, and we'll get in there to drill. So you talked about what are we going to do in 25. That's part of the plan, is to get in there and for the first time drill those breccias.
Okay, great. Just going back to the first discovery that you made this year, which was the Estremadoyro Breccia pipes. Is this kind of a more of the same in the sense that you've already discovered lots of Breccia pipes up in the northern portion? Is it roughly the same style of mineralization and the same geometry and the same? Is it a continuity of the kind of the discoveries that you've made up in the north?
That's exactly right. It is more of the same. It's high grade mineralization that crops out at surface. There's one, I think, very important difference here, is that we've seen bornite in this breccia pipe for the first time. We've always seen very strong chalcopyrite mineralization, and in this breccia pipe we started seeing bornite. And as you know, bornite's a higher grade copper mineral. It's a great mineral to see. And so that's exactly right. And I think in total we have 80 breccia targets on the project. We now have, after the testing that we've done over the last several years, we still have 52 targets that are untested, including those compañero breccias that you just mentioned. So we wanted to remind the market that the breccia pipe story is very much alive. It's a very exciting part of the project, but it's not the only part of the project.
You've got the mega gold porphyry target. I understand that. But before we kind of get into that, another style of mineralization that you've been talking about, which is not the Breccia story and which is not the porphyry story, is an epithermal target near heat, or kind of on the edge of heat. You know, for the translation, it's a kind of a slightly lower temperature, typically precious metals style of mineralization. And you've had some good signs at the surface at La Hoya, and you've drilled that. That's down slightly further to the southeast. How many holes did you put into that? Remind me.
We put 3 holes, just over 400 meters, and it was really just to confirm that we've got good grade and the right alteration to warrant additional work. We didn't have a lot of meters to work with in the drilling, but we were successful in crossing a strongly mineralized structure. We get over 1 kilogram of silver on that structure with about 0.45 gold in a broader zone of 4.5 meters of 323 grams silver. So very, very nice start to the drilling up there at La Hoya.
And was that a subvertical feature? And these were angle holes going across it?
That's right. Yeah, that's correct. We still need to do a lot more work with the detailed structural mapping. The geology is different, obviously. We're further away from the heat center, as you mentioned. But strong silver dominant mineralization with gold. And typically when you have that situation in a high sulfidation environment, you're at the top of the system, and as you go down, you should see more gold enrichment relative to silver. But good start to the drill program down there.
And now we come to mega gold, which is where you put in 8 holes, and as you said, it's kind of it's a large area, kind of a large surface area that you'd done geophysics and you'd done soil geochemistry on, rock sampling. So you were relatively confident that you were going to be going into something. What I found very interesting is in the interview that you did with Matt, you spoke about the precursor intrusion providing you with the kind of a mappable geophysical target that you can see with the geophysics, and that it's the edges of it. This is where you seem to have the subsequent kind of mineralizing fluids using the edges of the intrusion as a conduit, because there's a kind of a structural interface between the country rock and the intruded rock. And it's those fractures and that interface which has acted as the pathway for the mineralizing fluids. So can you just kind of, at a high level, explain to me kind of how that's changed your thinking about this kind of this mega gold area?
Yeah, I mean, it was really interesting, Merlin, when we put that together, and that really came out of going back to our ground magnetic survey and trying to understand fundamental geology And we had always known that the breccia pipes themselves were associated with the edges of these precursor or pre-mineral intrusions. But we had no idea that the megagold target area, which is really well defined by chargeability in the IP survey, which is basically telling us where the pyrite accumulates, right? And a pyrite shell is a part of a porphyry deposit. It's part of a ubiquitous part of how porphyry deposits form. And we discovered that the pyrite shells also sit right on the edge of this precursor intrusion. So it kind of makes sense. It's like, well, this is a very important controlling feature of the mineral system at Soledad. Get in and around the precursor intrusion. That's where you're going to find the breccia pipes, these breccia complexes, and it's also where you're going to find the accumulation of pyrite in these pyrite shells, which are by definition underlain by the intrusions that are driving those pyrite shells. So we think this is a really important breakthrough in our geologic understanding of the district.
When you talk about the kind of the pyrite shells being kind of in the upper zone and the conductivity anomalies being kind of below that, do you have a kind of feeling for depth of where these proto-porphyries might be kind of located? I mean, have you got an understanding of how deep they might be?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say. I've made this mistake before where I've judged geology off of geophysics, and then you drill and you find out that the geophysics is telling you something different. But I can tell you that conductivity feature is only about 300 meters below surface. It's further down the hill. We drilled up on the hill, kind of into the high chargeability, which we now know is the pyrite shell. And we saw very interesting geochemical trends, increasing copper, anomalous molybdenum, increasing gold, increasing intensity of alteration, but we never got deep enough to get into the conductivity zone. So just from a planning standpoint, we're anticipating 600 to 800 meter deep holes, not just to get into that. We'll get into that conductivity feature within 350 meters, but we want to have enough meters to go into the system to really understand what's happening at depth. If I had to fault what we've done this year, I'd say that we needed more meters to drill deeper. All the holes that we drilled at Megagold were giving us good information, but deeper holes would have helped in that regard.
How long were your kind of average holes there, and kind of what does that give you in terms of vertical depth if you were drilling angled holes?
You mean from what we've already drilled, or in the future? Yeah. So our deepest hole was 434 meters. That was hole 2 at Megagold. And it was an angle hole, so maybe it had a vertical depth of 375, say, something like that. And then all the other holes, we probably averaged about 350 meters depth in our 8 holes drilling. So
now in exploration, the market always wants immediate results. Everybody wants the philo style 1,000 meters of mineralization, but actually if you go back and look at how much work they did beforehand, there were years of drilling without mineralization, and then there were smaller intercepts, and gradually you build up a picture, and eventually it leads you to an area, because you're in a very data poor situation when you're working at the surface looking for something which is buried. Do you feel that the market has understood what you've the drilling to date of these 8 holes?
Well, I'd have to say no. I don't think they've understood, and I think that Philo is a great example. There's many great examples that you could even go back to Escondido, but Philo is a great example of where you get attracted to an area because of its regional setting. It's in the right belt. You're in the right age rocks. You've got a obvious large area of hydrothermal alteration that you can see from satellite imagery, but then you've got to get in there and start doing the hard work, and that's the hard work we started doing in 2017. Soil samples, multiple different types of geophysical surveys, satellite alteration studies, mapping, those types of things. And so you start forming these concepts, and you start drilling, and you start learning, and you start recycling that information back in and updating your models. It is a process, and I do think that the market is hoping. Obviously, everyone wants to go in and drill your first maiden holes and have announce a tier 1 discovery, but it's extremely rare for that to happen. Normally, what does happen, if you go and say, okay, let's just look at the discoveries that are made, forget all the ones that fail, but the discoveries that are made, normally it's a progression. You get some encouraging results. Okay, well, this is good. You didn't kill the prospect, which is one outcome that can happen. And what does this new information mean to us? You put it together, and you're kind of trying to vector in, and that's what we've been doing. That's why we work so hard to pull everything together at once, and that included the use of this geologger hyperspectral core scanning, which I think now is an integral part of our understanding of what's happening at Soledad.
I agree with you that it takes a while to build up information. When I was working on gold projects, or when I work on gold projects, my basic stance is that if you can work out which direction to drill within the first 40 holes, you're doing really well. Because it takes a long time to understand the characteristics of the structure and the mineralizing controls on your on your geology, and sometimes it takes much longer. And I remember there's a really good anecdote. I was speaking to some of the guys at Centamin who had made that fantastic discovery Sukari in Egypt, and in one of the presentations they said, "Oh, this was our discovery hole," and it said hole number 139. They had found lots of 1 gram, 2 gram material, but it was hole 139 that hit the big intercept of 5 grams or 6 grams gold. And that was the change, the hole that changed the understanding of the characteristic of the deposit.
Yeah, so, lots of examples like at Himlo. I think it was hole number 56, and in all of these examples you cite, there's always lots of smoke, right? It's not like you're not drilling dusters. You're drilling interesting things, and you are getting the 1 and 2 and 3 gram. I mean, look at in our case, the first 3 holes at Mega Gold on the east side. We had 11 grams gold, and we had an intercept with 1.8 grams gold and 0.35 copper. That's telling you something. There's a mineralizing fluid, and it's leaking, right? It's getting out of this hot mineralizing environment, and it's squirting out along fractures and contacts and that type of thing. It's giving you a clue, and you just got to pay attention to it.
One of the advantages as technology advances is it can condense turnaround times. We can now get much better multi-element analysis from our rocks, when before it was really expensive to do 36-element analysis. And you mentioned this hyperspectral kind of core scanning that you've got. I mean, in the old days, for us to get an understanding of the alteration characteristics of the rock, we'd have to send off and get petrographic studies done, thin sections and the like. Can you explain again at a high level what this tool does for you and why it's relevant and why it's useful?
Yeah, I mean, these are very, very sensitive, high resolution spectral cameras. They're the camera that we're using is a shortwave infrared. It's a high resolution camera that measures the reflectance and absorption of that energy from the minerals, and that in and lies tells you what the minerals are. So rather than relying on a geologist with a hand lens and dimly lit core shack trying to identify a multitude of different types of minerals, you've got a machine now that can give you very, very quantitative information about the mineralogy. And so it's just a way of extracting more information from the rocks. It's expensive to go out and drill. We take the capital that we raise from our investors, we deploy it in these drill programs, we extract as much information as we can, and then we incorporate those results into our model. Hopefully it's taking us in the direction of discovery.
And when you say quantitative, does it tell you that you've got this much, I don't know, feldspar and this much biotite and this much whatever it is? Does it
right.
give you the clays? Does it give you the alterations? How does the data get presented?
It gets presented in a strip log, and it's like a color graphical log, and the colors reflect the different minerals, and then we apply our interpretive skills to say, well, that color means lower temperature, this color means medium temperature, this is higher temperature. And, we take models that, there's been lots of great research in synthesis. Dick Silito is a classic, example of a gentleman spent his entire career developing these models that we use in exploration. But we can take the results from the core scanning and compare it to these models and say, okay, we think we're in, kind of a high level porphyry environment, and based on estimations of scale and stuff like that, we should be within 200 to 600 meters of the porphyry environment. Those are the types of things that we're doing. Where is the hottest part of the system as defined by our initial scout drilling, and where are the coolest, warmest, most distal part? And that's what we call refining our search space. We've taken a 2.5 square kilometer area, and now we've narrowed it down to a 1 square kilometer area, and it's within that area that we expect a discovery to be made, and that's where we will focus our attention going forward.
That's a porphyry target that you've vectored in on this much smaller search space. You've said that you'd like to do 600 to 800 meter drill holes there. You've also mentioned that you've got the Compañero Breccia complex off to the southwest, where you're hopefully going to get your permits to drill. And you've also mentioned that you've counted 80 or so of these breccias, and you've drilled 52 of them, or tested 52 of them. So you've got one target seems to be the kind of the large porphyry target, which you've kind of got at depth, and then you've got the kind of ongoing mineralization accumulation as you kind of you tick off the breccia targets. Yes, 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 yes. Or yes or no, depending on how that successful that goes. And then the third target you've got is La Hoya, which is the epithermal to the southeast. In your mind, what's your priority among those three targets?
Well, yeah, just a minor correction, Merlin. There's 52 untested Breccia targets. We tested 28, so there's a lot more Breccia targets to test. But you can segregate those into outcropping, strongly mineralized at surface, and those are the obvious ones to go after first. So there's the high-grade Breccias, Compañero being, the most, exciting untested Breccias that will soon have the permit to be able to drill. And then you've got the La Jolla high sulfidation epithermal, the plus kilogram silver intercept that we just had, needs a lot more work. We've got the discrete porphyry targets. And then in the broader district is where the rest of these untested targets lie. But, it's a progression. I've always envisioned that this would be a discovery where you get a critical mass of mineralization. As you know, we've got 6.7 million tons of resource in high-grade breccias. We want to get that to about a 10 million ton resource, because we think a 10 million ton high-grade resource starting at surface in a great location like we have could become a mine. Okay, that's a threshold we're trying to get to.
Yep.
We think that La Jolla could be a standalone precious metals discovery that could have, its own resource sufficient to sustain a project on its own. And then the porphyry target, that if we were to hit there, obviously that would be a complete game changer for everything we're doing in the district, right? And we still have that potential. It's tier one potential. It's why Goldfields is still, an excited partner of ours on this project. They see that potential, and it's so we're kind of trying to play a little bit of everything. We're not walking away from the high grade breccias. We think the La Jolla is a very exciting new discovery, and we still have the porphyry potential to work on.
If I was judging your comments there and applying a budget to it, I would probably, on the response of your answers, give 40% to the Breccias, 40% to Mega Gold, and 20% to La Jolla, or possibly a little bit less. It might be 42 or 45% each to the other two, and the remainder to La Jolla. Does that match your kind of sentiments, or am I putting my own bias on top of things?
No, I just wrote that down because I'm gonna start with that. I hadn't actually gotten to that point yet, Merlin. Yeah, I think something like that's right. I'd like to do a lot more mapping and detailed structural work at La Jolla. So we will go back in there with more meters, but it doesn't need to be a lot of meters. Uh, I'm kind of thinking about a 5,000 meter drill program and split up between Compañero, maybe 2,000 meters at Compañero, 2,000 meters at Mega Gold, and 1,000 meters. You always want more meters, So, but we really haven't gotten to that point yet. It's more about synthesizing everything we've got, crystallizing it, and kind of coming up with that framework. I do envision that Estremadoyro will need more resource drilling. I'm assuming that the Compañero breccias are going to have good initial scout drilling results and need to have some resource drilling. Success at La Jolla would spawn resource drilling. So, if you're thinking down the road, yes, there's another phase of exploration drilling, and then there's going to be a phase of resource drilling that we'd like to get to the point of doing an updated resource, on the heels of all this exploration drilling.
Yeah, good. I think that's a very useful way of characterizing it. You've done one phase of exploration drilling. You've used the word scout drilling as well. It feels as if you're still in that kind of that boundary between scout and exploration, particularly when you're going to be going down to the porphyry target, and also, of course, when you're drilling at depth in La Jolla, it's still going to be scouts plus exploration. And when you go to the new targets like Compañero, that's also going to be scout and exploration. So it's still there. You've improved your understanding a lot, and you've got much better indications. Your chances of success are much higher than they were. Yeah. But it's still exploration.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, if we had had more meters to drill at La Jolla, I'm sure we would have kept drilling. But we will go back there now knowing that we've got grade on our side, right? So we've seen the high grade silver, great to see, plus kilogram intercepts, and geology looks really good. So it means it's worthwhile to go back there. And same thing at Mega Gold. We've eliminated a big part of Mega Gold. It's not as high prospectivity as the eastern part. And that's a great outcome too. We're focusing in, we're taking our capital and deploying it in the area where we think we have the greatest potential.
Money notwithstanding, seasons notwithstanding, you mentioned a 5,000 meter drill program. How much kind of data processing, how much geological thinking, how much time do you need to mull it over, go for long walks and think about the where you're going to be drilling now? How much kind of information processing do you still have to do before you kind of start designing your next drill program?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of already started, but I would say a couple of months. We're working on the veins, and you've done lots of porphyry exploration, Merlin, and I know you know the importance of veins and porphyries and what they tell you about the system. We're working on that now. We're still integrating the results of the geologger result, but I'd say a couple of months to kind of let everything solidify, do some pre-planning on hole depths and access points, and we've got lots of platforms permitted on the south side. At the same time, we're going to be advancing the permit on the Compañeros. So I'd like to see it all to come together in Q4 and have a follow-up exploration plan that hits these three primary target areas, and then the results from that would be used to plan what kind of resource drilling. We could do resource drilling on Estremadoyro, for example, right now, but I'd like to do that in a dedicated program that's going to drill out anything else that we found that's of merit. And I'm very optimistic that Compañero will have some breccias that need to be drilled out. I think another round of drilling at La Jolla will show us where we could do some resource drilling. So that's where we're headed. Well, let's hope by a couple of months' time the market's recovered and all junior exploration companies, Chakana Copper included, are flush with cash and everyone's just going, drill, baby, drill. Yeah. So that's the sunny uplands. Those are the sunny uplands that I hope we all reach in a couple of months. David, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure talking to you about this project again. Thank you, Merlin. I appreciate your time. Have a great day.